My crazy 18-year-old son attempted to torture and unalive our family dog. Let's see how he likes it when he gets the same treatment. My 18-year-old kid has been a nightmare to deal with since the day he was born. Even as a baby he screamed and cried more than other kids. As a toddler did not understand and why boundaries that were set upon him, bit and kicked both my wife and I constantly, smashed plates in the house. We tried our best and we really did love him, but it's hard when your kid gets expelled from kindergarten for trying to light his classmates' hair on fire with matches which he brought into school behind our backs. At age 9 got diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. Essentially, he's a diagnosed psychopath. He got diagnosed after being expelled from a school for the 4th time. This time he snuck behind a girl and cut her undies open underneath her skirt with a pair of scissors. This was apparently the 3rd instance he has committed something so genius to this particular girl. That's what we were told anyway, we never heard it from the school before or from him. So, our son never attended school and has no education past the 2nd grade. His mother tried to homeschool him but that tenure ended when our son slapped her for giving him homework. As of today, our son is 18 and life with him has been a nightmare. My wife and I are both so tired from 18 years of dealing with this, and the only 2 lights in our lives right now are each other and the family dog. We got the dog a couple odd years ago, and our son despises this dog. I've seen him play way too rough with the dog sometimes, pretend to sock the dog, only that kind of stuff. I've told him to cut it out more times than I can imagine, and it was over the dog that a year my son and I got into our first ever physical altercation. This was by far not the first time he has hit me, but it was the first time I responded with violence. So our dog was upstairs, he likes to sleep there. I was downstairs, my wife was out of the house, and as far as I was concerned my son was out of the house too. Well, I heard my dog yelping, then growling, then barking, as if he was being heard or there was somebody in the house. Of course I ran to check it out, but I grabbed a knife before I did in case I had to deal with an armed intruder. When I sprinted upstairs, I see my son standing in the room, his hand wounded and the dog biting him over and over. I told my dog to stop immediately and told him to get out of the room, and like a good boy he did. My son screamed, "You're putting that dang dog down." He bit me, and he held up his hands to show me the wound, which wasn't even that severe. I responded telling him no, and asking him how he was even here in the first place. The window was open but this was the 2nd story, my son can't double leap like Mario. I stole a ladder then climbed in here. I hate that dumb dog, I just wanted to play with him. I told him that stealing a ladder is idiocy as well as a crime. And he better bring the ladder back right away before he gets arrested like the fool that he is. Calling him a fool angered him, and he swung at me. He was 17 years at this point and I had not once laid a hand on him, not when he burned me or my wife, bit us, socked us, threatened to sock my wife in the belly when she was pregnant a few years ago, which caused her so much stress she miscarried. Never have I laid hands on him, but when he swung at me this time, all the years of rage came out and I swung back. My punch connected and he fell onto the bed, proceeding to cuss and yell at me. That's how our argument was solved that day. It's weird, because ever since he got hit that day, he acted a lot better for a while. Maybe he had finally realized that his actions have consequences? Yeah, sadly that was not the case. Although I do have to say that for the better part of almost a year there was a significantly less amount of anger from him, less violence, it did not stop completely. He would still get super angry during full moons. He says full moons bring out the worst in him. We also suspect he has schizophrenia. So it was during one of these full moons that he tried to end the life of our family dog. It happened just last week, and the memory is still clear and fresh in my head. My son was out for the night, and my wife and I were sleeping in our room, and the dog was sleeping in the room next to ours. Dog, this was a clear cry for help. My wife woke up too, and I grabbed my firearm from my bedside locker and ran into where my dog was. What do I see there? My son, holding a knife. With it, he is wounding the dog in its belly over and over, but not enough to unalive it, just enough to draw red as he's holding him down by the neck. I didn't have the strength to point my firearm at my son, so I just screamed for him to stop. My son was clearly intoxicated, his eyes shifted a lot and he seemed jittery. When I screamed for him to stop, he did not. Instead, he took out a match and lit it, then held it against the dog's tail. The dog let out a heartbreaking squeal and tried to get away, but to no avail. When I say this I couldn't take much more. My wife was standing beside me frozen, and I ran over and pistol whipped my son as hard as I could. He instantly let go of the dog and I managed to grab the match out of his hand and put it out. My son was clutching his face now, and I pistol whipped him again, and again. I told my wife to leave the room with the dog and so they did. I spent the next few minutes viciously laying into my son. All the years of abuse poured out, all the hatred I have for him amplified heavily, but the action he just attempted to commit. I kept socking him over and over, even when he was on the ground. I did not relent. By the end he was very, very wounded, but conscious. I told him that I would give him 2 weeks to get the heck out of the house or else I'll do this again to impress. Share then more for part 2.